Okay, so the purpose of the report that we have before us this morning is to outline the outcome of the Stage 1 design contract for Kingsdyke and to consider the next steps for this project. So I won't go into too much of the background. I think committee and members are well aware of the background to this project and the basis and how important this project is. I will just run through the fact that there were 3 route options that were considered by this committee in 2015, and they selected to progress to the preferred option through that public consultation. Planning permission was subsequently granted, and a design contract was awarded in August of 2017, breaking out there, through a competitive procurement process, which allowed for a future construction contract to be awarded. In October 2018, it was reported to committee the estimated initial target construction price had increased significantly from the 7.8 million in 2017 to the 15.8 million, and that was based on 90% design completion at that point by Kier, who were carrying out the design contract. Assurances were, however, given at that time that this was a robust price and appropriate levels of risk had been incorporated into that. This was reported to this committee, as I've said, and a revised benefit cost ratio was also produced for the scheme, which informed the decision that the committee took, and that benefit cost ratio was extremely high, in excess of 8, which is a very high benefit cost ratio. The committee subsequently approved moving forward to the Stage 2 contract, and also procuring and acquiring the land, subject to securing the additional funding that was required, which was ultimately secured through the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority in the October of last year. So moving on to the main issues, we experienced a delayed outcome, basically to the design contract and design phase. The contract was complete and fully detailed, and a proposed target price incorporated in the design was basically the outcome of the design phase. A committee in October 2018, it was highlighted there were significant changes through the design process, but since then it's become apparent that the design wasn't actually 90% complete, as was thought at that point, and only very recently has that design been completed on the 17th of July last month, when we received the formal submission from Kier, our design contractor, which highlighted a target price now of 26.2 million, a further 10 million higher than that was quoted in October of 2018, and that which was presented to this committee at that point. The reasoning behind this falls across a number of areas, many of which were quoted back in October of last year, and a general increase across many of the items that make up the price for the scheme. External cost consultants have again reviewed this price, consider it high compared to similar projects, but have concluded that, in their opinion, a competitive market may offer a better value solution. We've, as I've outlined, had some challenges in completing the design with Kier, and some performance issues in getting that design complete, being significantly delayed, and as well in terms of how the budget has been managed by their design contractor, moving from 8 to 15.8 to 26.2, has obviously also been of concern. So on this basis, the proposal is that we are not recommending that we now award a construction contract to Kier, particularly based on the lack of an acceptable level of assurance that the submitted price represents good value for money, and therefore we are proposing to re-tender, or requesting and recommending to this committee that we re-tender to the open market. It's worth noting that whilst there are no guarantees that a more competitive price resulting from this, in terms of a reduction in price, a more competitive price through re-tendering to the open market is the only way to truly demonstrate value for money and accountability to the public purse. So therefore it is highly recommended. So just moving on then to a review of the route options. So clearly the scope of this has, and the detailed design has progressed over the previous 18 months. And this is an opportune time to review the route option selections that took place prior to Kier being appointed as the designer. And in the report you'll see the original consultation illustration that shows the 3 options that were considered. And at that point, public consultation in 2014 was a 58% support for Route 3, which was informed of the basis for this committee selecting that as the preferred route at that time. Table 1 in the report reviews again those 3 route options, and you can see within that table there are areas that are highlighted of potential significant risk within routes 1 and 2. in terms of planning and design, obviously we'll be returning to design at that point, and particularly in terms of timescales. So you'll see in there that the recommended Route 3 has a completion of 2022, whereas Routes 1 and 2 would be 2026. There are also significant risks with 1 and 2 around negotiating with local businesses and relocating a railway signal box, and both of those options will also require planning and design work to begin almost from the beginning. So Route 3 is therefore recommended, and as you see from the table, that is thought to be the quickest and lowest risk option to continue to pursue. With that in mind, we also conducted, as many of you will be aware, a local information event which took place here on Monday afternoon between 3 PM and 8 PM. And I can say that event was very well attended. There were 265 people who attended that event between 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock. And you see in the room the exhibition boards that were used at that event. Of those 265 people, we requested their thoughts on and preference over those 3 routes, and 181 of those people gave their preference for those 3 routes, and I can confirm that 87%, so 158 people of the 181 votes preferred option 3 as the route to pursue, and I can report to the committee that outcome, which supports officers' recommendation within this report. There were 18 for option 1, so 10%, and there was 1 for option 2, so 0.5%, and there were 4 for none of these options, so not really some clarity on what was thought there were generally not supported. But 87% clear support for continuing with option 3. So then, just moving on to therefore the procurement options to move forward with option 3, Route 3. The detailed design for Route 3 is now complete, as I've mentioned. It is owned by the council, and therefore we are proposing to carry out a procurement exercise to commence based on that design. To achieve the best possible outcome, we are proposing to offer that design and through a procurement process to the open market to get the best possible outcome from this process and the time it's going to take to carry out this procurement to get the best possible price and competitive price. All contractors will have the opportunity to express interest. It will, because of its value, be open to the official journal of the European Union, so it will be open to any contractor within Europe to express an interest through a 2-stage process. It will, the contract itself is proposed to be a new engineering contract, very, very common, one of the most commonly used, frequently used contracts within the UK for highway infrastructure schemes. The report says the 4th edition, it will actually, apologies, be the 3rd edition of the new engineering contract, rather than the 4th edition, so just to highlight that is supposed to be the 3rd edition to be utilised. And it is proposed to remain, or to become a design and build contract, so we are still requesting that the responses and the contractor will still be responsible for the design through this procurement. So the design will be issued with the procurement, and the contractor will take on board, we requested to take on board that design, but also potentially propose any changes that could deliver potential savings from that design. And that will be the process that will take place during that procurement period. But the price that will be received will be the price for the project to be constructed at that point that is assessed through the tender process. I won't go into too much detail of the procurement. I'm happy to answer any questions on the details of the procurement. The proposal is that the tender will be assessed on a 60-40 price quality split, so 60% price, 40% quality. And a lot of that is on the basis that this will be a 2-stage process. So there will be an initial selection process for quality. So there will be a separate process that will assess quality with a short list of 5 contractors. So there will be an initial quality assessment. And therefore in the second phase, through the invitation to tender, those 5 contractors will be therefore primarily assessed on price, 60% price, but still based on 40% quality at that point. to achieve best possible value for money. And also the details, the design and specification is very defined at this point, so we have very much defined the quality that we're expecting. Therefore, we are proposing to focus very much on price. In terms of the full programme, on that basis, subject to an OG official due of European Union process, subject to this committee approving that process this morning, we will be looking to advertise and commence that process at the end of September of this year, with a view to commencing construction in December 2020 at the latest. Just to cover a breakdown of total spend to date in 2.38 in Table 2, you will see there that we spent just over £8 million on this project to date. 4.1 of that is the land, so the County Council, as I mentioned, already owns the land, and that is insecure. The design is complete. We have a design to procure and put out for construction, of which we have paid 1.4 million, which has included some costs associated with Stage 2, which are detailed in that table. There are also some statutory undertakers costs associated with diversions of electrical cables, which have already been completed in advance. So that's work that's already been carried out, which will again facilitate construction along this route. There are some costs in there associated with Network Rail, in terms of getting the approvals, a significant amount of approvals required to work within proximity of a railway line. And obviously there are some management and supervision fees for consultants and internal council staff costs that have been incurred over the period that this project has been in development. In terms of the procurement process, the estimate is that will cost approximately £200,000 to carry out this process. It is worth noting in here that, as it states in 2.4, that there is a potential clearly that additional funding will be required for this scheme following the procurement process, and officers will look to pursue potential funding opportunities in parallel with this process. So returning to the recommendations, there are quite a few there. I won't go through them in detail, but the general consensus is the recommendation to agree not to award the construction contract here, and to reaffirm that Route 3 remains the preferred route, and then to approve re-procurement and testing the market to achieve and then be able to demonstrate a competitive price and value for money for this project.